Hello everyone, welcome to another video where I read Reddit stories based around language learning or bilingualism or anything language related essentially. I'm really happy that you guys enjoyed the video I did last week. I wasn't sure you would like it, to be honest, because I've tried this format a few months ago, maybe a year ago, and I didn't get much engagement for it, so I wasn't sure, but I'm glad I tried because you guys enjoyed it and you had very interesting takes. If you've missed that video, I recommend you check it out. I will put it in the description box below. So if you're new to this format, I'm reading stories from the Am I the Asshole subreddit, Reddit being a kind of forum, I guess. And basically, the point of this subreddit is for people to explain a situation where there is, we assume, some kind of conflict at least, and then people have to decide whether they were the asshole in the story, not the asshole, if everyone sucks here, no assholes here, etc., etc. There's different types of judgments, but that's essentially it. In these videos, I kind of ramble a little bit, so, you know, it's kind of podcasty, I suppose, in a way. So feel free to do your cleaning while you're watching this or whatever you have to do. But I suggest we just go ahead. And I made myself a chuhai, homemade. I don't know if it's going to be good. ChatGPT taught me how to do that. So we'll see if AI is worth anything or if I'm just wasting my money into my ChatGPT subscription. Anyway, let's go. So this first story I'm going to read kind of echoes the theme we had last week, which was, teaching languages to kids at school, at home, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, but the other story will be a bit more different, so we can switch things up a little bit. But anyway, let's go. And by the way, this drink is not that great. It just tastes of nihonshu, which is Japanese wine. That's what it tastes like to me. But anyway, let's go. So the title is, Am I the Asshole for Sending My Eldest to a School that is taught in a language she's weak in? Interesting, because you would imagine that's a good thing, but let's see where the conflict is. I, 39 male, am married, 38 female, and we have 2 kids, 5 female and 2 female. Okay, 2 daughters. Together. For the first 3 years of our oldest's life, her first language was her mother's native tongue, English second, and my native tongue third. Until her younger sister was born, where I ended up being a primary caretaker of our oldest. Ever since our youngest daughter was born, our oldest started to pick up my native tongue due to kids from neighbors and from my parents who live close by. I usually talk to her in a mixture of English and my native tongue. At the same time, she is losing her mother's native tongue. We tried retaining that language for her by having a mother-daughter weekend date and setting limits on TV shows she can watch. She can only watch shows that are in her mother's language or English. Since we live in a city where 80% of the population are native speakers of my language, it is easier for our kids to pick up that language. As of now, our oldest speaks my language the best, with English second from daycare and her mother's native tongue being weak. She could only speak her mother's language after watching a TV show in that language for limited time. Our youngest speaks her mother's native the best, with my native tongue on par with playing with other kids and English from daycare. Okay, that gets a bit confusing. I kind of wish the guy had given a language or language A, language C or whatever. That would have been a bit easier, but let's see. The oldest daughter speaks the dad's native language the best, with English second and then the mother's native tongue being the weakest. Okay, I think I've got it. So because their mother barely speaks my native language, still learning but slowly, I established a rule for my oldest to not speak my language at home. Only English and her mother's native tongue. She could only speak my native tongue outside home. We also sent the oldest to an international school where English and her mother's language are the main instruction. Okay, to be honest, the dynamics is a little bit confusing and it's a little bit strict. I get that he's trying to give each language enough exposure so, the child can develop fluency, but that sounds a bit strict and a bit confusing, but let's see where this goes. I might be the asshole because we live in the US and my native tongue is the second most spoken language here. Neighbors and some relatives said I am not considering my parents since they do not speak English, even after living in the US for over 40 years. Forbidding my daughter from speaking my language might strain her relationship with her grandparents. Yeah, I'm kind of struggling here. I wouldn't say that dad is a massive asshole, but it's just a bit weird what they're doing. It's a bit confusing. So I think if I'm confused, the child might be confused. It's kind of also weird to be like, you can't speak that language. I think the way to go about it, not that I am an expert in bilingualism, but I've read a lot about it for my master's. The best way to go about it is to create a genuine need for the language. So it's not about forcing the language, it's more about creating opportunities where the child can speak it. So taking a child to a school where 1 or 2 languages are spoken is a good thing. Having a nanny in a specific language, having an au pair, having the child, socialize with other kids their age that speak a certain language, all different ways and strategies you can implement in a natural way. I mean, I don't like the word natural, but in a way that's not forced. Sounds quite natural and spontaneous. That's a better word. I don't like the word natural. I think it's a bit overused and overrated. So it's a bit strange to be like, no, you can't speak this language at home. It should be situations where she has to speak certain languages in order to function, as opposed to being in situations where the child can't speak the language. It's a bit of a problematic way of going about it, I think. But I'm curious to see what the comments say. But I would say for maybe not the asshole, I think that is trying, but maybe slightly the asshole, because he's kind of going about it in the wrong way, in my opinion. But let's see the comments. You're the asshole, gently. Not because of trying to teach your kids 3 languages before forbidding a language. Your kid is 5. You can, as an adult, decide to speak language 1 or 2 or 3 only in the house to your kids, but what language they respond in shouldn't be in a good or bad scale, in my opinion. I agree. I feel like the dad is sort of punishing or like using something that's kind of negative. There's a negative vibe. I don't know if you guys see it. Maybe I'm not able to express myself clearly, but I don't know. Second comment. The specialists in bilingualism will tell you there is no right or wrong way to be bilingual or trilingual. Yes and no. Obviously, I think there are bad ways and there are better ways to go about it. But obviously, there's no absolutes. Linguists aren't saying this is the only way. But there's linguists that have strong opinions. Linguists that are specialized in bilingual language acquisition, especially native one, as opposed to just SLA, second language acquisition, right? A linguist that I like in the bilingualism field is François Grosjean. I've made a video about it, about him rather. Actually emailed me a few days later. Like, he randomly saw the video. Such funny coincidence. And it definitely says a lot of things about bilingualism, which I'm not going to try to summarize in a few minutes, but I'll put a link to his website, which has lots of useful resources. One of the methods he sort of emphasizes on is the idea of creating a need. So it's not about parent speaks this language and parent 2 speaks the other language. It's more about the exposure overall. Across the day. But what happens is that usually the home language, if you're in the US, for example, is going to be English most of the time. That language is going to be the strongest language because it's going to be everywhere. And then it's a matter of creating opportunities in the other language or languages so that there's enough exposure. That's why the parent 1 speaks language A and parent 2 speaks language B method doesn't always work, because if the parent is English and speaks English, then the child is going to have English outside of the home and inside the home. So in total, the proportion of I can't say it. The proportion of language that's spoken for language B is going to be reduced, or like the exposure is going to be lower. So this method, I think, in many situations doesn't work. So I don't encourage the parent 1 language A, parent 2 language B method. It's more about making sure languages are present in the child's life in equal parts, if you will. Anyway, let's carry on. That was a tangent for me, but I love this topic. Sorry. Also, not sorry. It's my video. You know what you're here for. Anyway, but they discourage forbidding or forcing a language. I agree. Let them speak what they are comfortable speaking and perhaps choose music, books, and cartoons in the other languages. That way, you don't create negativity, exactly, around any language, and they will still benefit from it. I speak a different language, and my daughter only spoke that language until she started school. Then she switched to English. But I made sure she had contact with the other language through books and visiting relatives. She's bilingual now. I think that's correct. I don't have anything else to say. Let's read a final one. Let's read a final one. No assholes here. It's a tough question with no wrong answers. Do what you think is best for the future of your kids, not what other people want from your kids. No matter what, your kids will have a huge leg up on peers from such broad language exposure and training. I mean, obviously, this is not a life or death situation. So, we're just arguing about academics and things are sort of trivial, if you will. But I don't know. It depends on what your perspective is on the topic. If you want to optimize bilingualism, you should definitely follow certain rules, namely what I just talked about, in my opinion, again. But yeah, as the commenter said, no matter what happens, the kid will benefit from whatever fluency they end up reaching. So it's not the end of the world, but understand how, depending on your perspective, if you're like aiming for perfect or like, high fluency for the kid in the three languages, then yes, you want to follow certain methods. But you can also take a more chilled approach and focus on maybe two languages, making sure the third language still gets some exposure so it's not completely gone. And then this language can be practiced later on, It's not easy to maintain three languages for kids. I mean, I'm lucky enough I grew up bilingual, but trilingual would be a lot of work. In fact, I was exposed to Spanish as a kid, and I did get some sort of fluency. Native-like would be a bit of a stretch, I think, in my case, but I still get some kind of easiness or ease with Spanish. But you could also argue I have this ease with Spanish because of Portuguese. I don't know. But I think, growing up listening to Spanish and hearing and speaking a bit of Spanish did help for sure later on in life. Am I the asshole for being okay with my baby speaking my wife's native language? Hi, and thanks in advance for reading this. I'm 30 male and white British. My wife, Jan, is 29 female and originally from Pakistan, but was brought up as an expat in a bunch of European countries. We have a 4-year-old Peter who is obviously mixed race. She is good with languages because of her upbringing. Urdu is a mother tongue and her English accent is better than mine. Kind of interesting that he's saying her accent is better. Not that it shouldn't be, but like, why are we judging the accent? I don't know. That's a bit, interesting. The language she's most comfortable with is German, as all the countries her parents worked in were German speaking. Okay, so fluent in German. Jan was keen for us to have a family language. I was keen to learn Urdu, but we quickly found out I am terrible. She found it hilarious and decided it would be less painful for us both if we switched to German. I did some at school, she taught me a lot, I attended some classes, and I'm near fluent now. Hence, Peter grew up bilingual. English, I speak to him. German, all three of us speak. And Urdu, she speaks to him. He's not Shakespeare, his fault, but speaks all three impressively. I am loving this successful trilingual story so far. My parents are proud of him, as are Jan and I, but my sister-in-law, also white British, who has a daughter Jenny, 5 female, is really angry. Here comes the sister-in-law being a buzzkill. She keeps telling me that we are deprioritizing English and that Peter will struggle when he starts school and speaks with an accent. Okay. Obviously ignorant language views, but let's carry on. I said that implies most ethnic kids in the UK are failures. Good point. Obviously, that's not the case. I'm not saying he's right. And that Peter has a British father, and my side of the family are all white British. Peter's not lacking in Britishness. I called her out on the accent thing. He doesn't have one, but an accent is not a fault. Agreed. I don't know why she thought he'd have one, by the way. My wife sounds like a native speaker. It's giving racism a bit, but let's carry on. Cue to a gathering last week. Peter was playing with Jenny and pointed at something and said its name in all 3 languages. Jenny found that fun and kept asking him to name things in all 3, which he happily did. That's a cute game. I thought that was a very normal interaction, but my sister-in-law called to say she will never bring Jenny over again if I let Peter confuse her with other languages and to not let him show off in family events. Let's keep going. She said that it was setting Jenny back and she does not want to be disadvantaged. She said Jenny copied some words in English in Peter's accent, except it's not an accent, it's just a slight lisp. Many kids have it at that age. It's frustrating. I mean, I understand that not everyone, knows about how bilingualism works. People believe that, they used to believe in the 50s, I believe, that learning 2 languages means that you would be learning twice as slow, but obviously that's not the case. At best, linguists, I believe, have observed that there can be a slight delay, but it's not a delay for your entire life. It's like I don't know, when kids are 3 to 4, they might be a little bit behind their peers, but then they catch up eventually. So it might not even be a year, it could be a couple of months, I don't know, but it's not like a serious delay that will set back a kid for life, essentially. That's not a thing. That's never happened, and that's never been observed, if you had a doubt. I am refusing to forbid Peter, especially as Jenny asked him to do it. I never want him to think my wife's language is inferior and meant to be hidden. Good on him. She doubled down and accused me of sabotaging Jenny because you two know Peter will be discriminated against, so you want Jenny to face the same. Huh? That's unhinged. What? That makes zero sense. I said that's ridiculous. We are aware Peter will definitely face some discrimination, but that'll be because of his race, not because he speaks German. Lol. My brother, however, has joined her side and refuses to bring Jenny over. That's very shocking. I need a drink. Am I the asshole? Should I have stopped Peter when I noticed the game, or tell him to not speak the other languages in front of my side of the family just to smooth things over? Was I disrespectful to her parenting styles? No. I'm gonna have to censor that, but no. We have an edit. Many of you pointed out that this is quite discriminatory, borderline racist, especially the accent thing. For sure. That reminds me of something. I think I read a study or I watched a video about the topic, but it basically argued that a person of color, let's say they were born in the UK and they speak English natively, they speak with a native accent, people are more likely to assume, not actually hear, but assume they have an accent just because of the color of their skin. And that's kind of interesting, but obviously, linguistic discrimination has a lot to do with that. That can be a video I should do at some point. I talked about it a long time ago, but it wasn't like a well-researched video. It was more like sort of sharing my story, if you will. I'm not a person of color, but I did have to deal with negative language attitudes because I was born bilingual and my parents are not from France and that kind of stuff. But that's a topic for another day, but I just thought that was worth mentioning. I had never considered that because, as I said, my parents are so supportive that I assumed sister-in-law and brother were also that unprejudiced. But it does make a lot of sense, especially because one of the more bizarre reasons for sister-in-law disliking Peter, speaking Urdu specifically, is Peter looks pretty white, so he would get unwanted questions about why he can speak Urdu. I mean, yeah, he would definitely get these questions, I guess. Same for a white person speaking Japanese would probably get a bit of confusion, but there's still not a reason not to learn a language or to teach your kid a language. It would just be giving in to discrimination and racism, which I'm not a fan of, obviously. Let's keep going. Which is a ridiculous take on hindsight. Yes, Peter is somewhat white passing, but most white/South Asian mixed race people are vaguely white passing, especially when young. So him speaking Urdu in public wouldn't look weird because white South Asian relationships are relatively common in the UK, so people would just assume he's mixed race. As they should, I mean. I also do think it's kind of up and skull measury of her to look at a 4-year-old and establish his racialized features. Yeah, good point. Pretty effed up. Edit 2. Thank you all so much for your lovely comments and reassurance, except you/European lady who PM'd me instead of commenting to say he didn't need to know the other languages to live in the UK and that an accent is a negative. Screw European lady. We don't like her here. I think that is a very regressive and narrow-minded opinion, and loud people who think like you are the reason Britain is so backwards when it comes to language education. Also, it is very rude to imply that the native language of half my son's family is useless to him just because my wife can speak English. Yeah, honestly, do I need to defend that? In linguistics, nothing would support that woman's, to be polite, opinion, so we can just move on. Anyway, I would say not the asshole, of course, but the sister-in-law is definitely a bitch. She's the asshole. Let's read the first comment. Oh my gosh, your life is not a news channel. The racists don't deserve the right to speak here. Multilingualism is a blessing, not a curse, and anyone who claims otherwise is uninformed and bigoted. What you are doing is immensely beneficial for your son, not the asshole. Nothing to add. As far as I'm concerned, is right on the money. Second comment. Not the asshole. You and your wife are giving your son a huge advantage in life, teaching him to be multilingual. Sister-in-law sounds ridiculous and quite frankly racist. I agree. For the next comment, I want to see if I can find something more controversial. Did someone think he was an asshole? Let's scroll back a bit. That'd be interesting to see sort of different opinions. Okay, I could not find any negative comment. I mean, there's 700 comments. I'm not going to scroll through all of them. The negative ones tend to be at the bottom, or the downvoted ones, I mean, tend to be at the bottom, so doesn't matter. Let's just read the third comment though, just for good measure. Not the asshole. You're giving Peter a great start in life, and sister-in-law is jealous that she can't give her daughter the same. Kids don't get confused by extra languages. They're quite capable of understanding how languages work. Yeah, absolutely. There's literally zero reason to not teach a child a language. I mean, I can't think of one. Like, I can't think of one. Let me know if you can think of one, but I just can't. So here we go. All right, so that is it for this video. I'm trying not to make it as long as last week's because that was really long to edit. But I hope you enjoyed it. As usual, let me know what your takes are on any of the stories. I do like having a bit of a debate with you guys in the comment section. And if you've watched the video until the end, I sometimes forget to do that. I'd like you to drop an emoji that represents the drink you like the most. I don't know if there's many drinks, but I think there's milk, water, wine, champagne. So, you know, figure it out. All right, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.